Hello and welcome to the 33rd Zebra BI webinar. I'm Andrej of Zebra BI, and today I'll talk about my favorite subject in the whole world, which is data visualization. Uh, that is, to be more precise, everything about charts, and specifically how to choose the best chart for your situation, for your report in Power BI. Now, everything that I'm gonna say today is actually relevant for other BI tools as well. Of course, Power BI is now number one, in the world. So I'll show all the examples in Power BI, but the theory of charts and on efficient charts can be applied to other tools like Excel, Tableau, and whatever tool you're using. So hopefully this will be useful and interesting to everybody. All right, now the charts. All right, the charts are supposed to um, answer questions related to data. All right. So I took one of the most frequently used charts in Power BI, at least what seems to be one of the most frequently used charts in Power BI. If you do a Google search or if you watch like presentations in the Power BI community, it's very colorful. People love it. So let's try this with a couple of questions. Is it efficient, and what kind of questions can this chart help me answer? All right, so this is sales by business unit. So it's a breakdown of my sales, my revenue, for example, by business unit. All right, so obviously I have some business units here, and yeah, I can see that like half of the sales comes from baby care business unit and wearables, right? But what about other questions that somebody who is interested in sales, namely a sales manager, sales area manager, and so on, might ask himself? So let's try a couple of questions like that. First of all, is my overall sales performance good or bad? Hard to say, right? Could be good, could be bad. We don't know. We just know the rough breakdown of the sales in percentages roughly, right? So how good, how bad is it? Is it 20% above the plan? Is it, are we below the goal, below the benchmark? Better than last year, and so on. No idea. Why? Also, we have no idea. What are we going to do about it? I don't know. Okay, so it's not very actionable. Next, what's the sales of speakers, right? What's the sales? I don't see it here, right? So maybe I could see it if I took my time and just, hover with my mouse over that, get a tooltip or something, but managers don't really do that. Is the sales performance, the sales of speakers better than planned? No idea. Has sales in the baby care business unit grown since last year or not? Also, I don't know. It's blue. Does that mean something? I guess not. All right. For how much since last year? I don't know. Why has it grown, or maybe has negative growth from previous year? Also, I have no idea. What's the trend of sales in tablets, right? And so on and so on. So there are many perfectly valid questions that this particular chart type or this particular visual does not answer. It does answer, a couple of other questions like, okay, what's the rough, breakdown of the sales by business unit? Yeah, but that's more or less it, right? So although it uses many colors, a lot of space, almost, the whole page here, it is actually very poor in the information insight that I can gain from this chart. All right, so not too good. And, I would argue that it is not efficient for these particular questions, right? So what is an efficient chart? According to Jacques Bertin, one of the best authors in the field of data visualization, this is a quote from his Semiology of Graphics from 1967, right? He says that an efficient chart requires the shortest period of perception in order to obtain a correct and complete answer to a given question. All right, so if I have a question, I should get a correct answer, a complete answer, and in the shortest possible time. All right, especially if you're creating your charts and your dashboards and reports for the management that does not have a lot of time, of course. All right, so I'm Andrej, the founder and CEO at ZebraBI. I'm the Microsoft Most Valuable Professional and he heard IBCS certified consultant. So I will lead this session, but I'm also happy that our BI consultant, Mark Leskoshek, is here, who will help me with the questions, with the Q&A. So Mark, would you say hi to our audience?
Yes, hello everyone. Just during the webinar, feel free to ask any questions so we may answer them in during the webinar itself, and hopefully we'll be able to answer all of your questions that way. So at the end, maybe we don't get overwhelmed by all of the questions building up inside during the entire session. But yes, welcome everyone, even from my side, and Andrej, take it away.
All right, thanks, Mark. Yeah, just type your questions into the chat, into the questions box, actually. So Mark will try to reply while I'm talking. So, and then, of course, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So this will be a 1 hour deep session on charts, plus the Q&A at the end. So we'll talk about guidelines, guidelines about visualization in general, taxonomy of business charts. So we have a whole systematization of charts that we'll present today, a very practical 3-step tutorial on how to choose the right chart for the right situation. We'll talk a little bit about the best practice in designing charts versus the so-called chart junk, which you don't want to deliver. And at the end, we'll also show a couple of more advanced chart types for business users in business intelligence. And I'll share the resources and download links and Q&A at the end. We are recording this session, so we will send you the recording afterwards. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, then subscribe to get notified for the next webinars, but also make sure to check the comments, the description below, because we will store all the material from today, the PBIX files and everything that we'll hand out on our webpage. All right. So Power BI has a lot of visualizations or the so-called visuals in Power BI. So you have charts, you have maps, you have tables, and KPI cards and other types of visuals. Some of them are available natively in Power BI. On top of that, there are almost 300, or actually I think more than 300 custom visuals available on the marketplace. ZebraBI included, of course, but there are also other ones. So there's a lot of options how to visualize your data. All right. So just to frame this discussion, I want to start with this visualization wheel, which is a concept by Alberto Cairo. I have amended it slightly for the purpose of this webinar today, but just to generally frame this discussion. So your charts can be, for example, very decorative. Oh, actually, I learned the, let me do this, perfect. I learned the keyword shortcut for this just recently. So, you know, your charts can be very decorative, right, or very functional. So this is one dimension, you know, for placing charts in this wheel, either very functional or very decorative, very figurative, like almost pictures, you know, realistic pictures versus very abstract. They can be very original, right, almost information art, or very familiar, like, you know, line charts and so on, that everybody is already familiar with, right? They can be dense, very information rich and so on, or they can be very light, almost trivial, right? And now you can place different types of visualizations on this wheel. On the right side, we will find more, you know, things like infographics, information art, and so on, that is very decorative and so on, with the purpose of maybe even entertaining, sometimes shocking people in some magazines and so on. Whereas on the other side, we have very functional charts, very efficient, you know, time efficient and so on, that should be used in business intelligence, business reporting, dashboarding, and so on, right? So it is important when you are choosing your charts to actually understand who is your audience. Who is your audience? What are the possible questions they will ask about the data you're presenting, and so on, right? Because this is the number one prerequisite that you will choose the right chart. So for our purpose, for this webinar, we'll focus on the management, right? Because they are the primary, you know, audience in business intelligence. So what kind of visualization do managers actually require? Okay, I would argue that they require visuals that are somehow on the left side of this wheel. All right, this means that you will not create and deliver and publish you know, very original types of charts that were just invented, or maybe even you invented, and so on, because they won't understand them, at least not in you know, a limited amount of time. You will not deliver very figurative, you know, charts or decorative charts that are very colorful and so on, but are actually very poor in information. And of course, you will also not deliver very trivial, very light, very trivial types of charts that just visualize maybe one number and so on, because this is not enough for the management. So what does management need? Management needs consistent, understandable, and actionable charts that they can quickly understand, but at the same time are deep enough that they can actually get the answer to all of their quite complex questions about the business, which means that these charts must be dense, okay? They must be insightful, they must be information rich, right? Not trivial. There must be enough information on your dashboards. They must be very functional, which means completely clean, truthful, right? So not lie or deceive even, and so on. They must be properly labeled and so on. Of course, they are abstract, not realistic, and they must be familiar in some way, right? Which could mean also, you know, recognizable, quickly recognizable, and above all, consistent. I think this is the key word here, consistent, because if you're doing it, you know, always in the same way, then the charts will become familiar and people will read them as traffic signs, right? Very quickly, they'll understand everything very quickly. All right, so what are those types of charts? Okay, I have prepared here a taxonomy of business charts. So I basically took all the charts that I believe are you know, useful in business reporting, and just placed them into this table that is organized according to 3 criteria. Okay, the first one is, are the charts presenting time series or present a structure or a breakdown by something else than time? Okay, so and those charts, as we will see, all the time series charts basically have horizontal axis, and here we have vertical axis. Then the second important thing is, what is the task that the users can actually provide based on, you know, the type of chart? Is it a simple comparison? Will they just simply compare certain data points? Will they compare parts, assess like the part, the whole, contribution of elements, and so on? So this is the task, and then also the shape, because in the end you have to decide whether to you know, use a column chart or a line chart or an area chart, and so on. So, you know, you have different shapes here. So this is like the systematization of the charts. And then on top of that, we also know, we also have data visualization methods that use multiple charts in a systematic way. For example, the small multiples. You probably heard about the small multiples. They are getting popular now. Then, of course, you have combination charts. You can mix certain chart types together. And we also know the extended charts, which basically are sets of charts, 2 or 3 or even more charts that somehow fit together and also share the same scale. All right, so we'll talk about that as well today. And now these are only charts. Of course, in Power BI, you also have visuals that are not actually charts. And of course, you need different types of elements on your reports, right? So not just charts, but also tables, and then maybe network visualizations, and maps. All right, but today I'll focus on charts. Okay, so all right, like that. So how to choose the right chart now, the right one from this table now. All right, so we'll go in 3 very simple steps. First, orientation. Should it have a horizontal axis or vertical axis, or maybe polar? All right, we'll see about that. Once this is done, once you decide upon the orientation, you need to decide what is the task or what is the analysis that the user will actually perform. And or maybe you can also ask yourself a question: what is the message that this chart is delivering, or maybe you want to deliver to somebody if you're actually reporting or doing a presentation, or and so on. And then in the last step, we'll decide on the which shape to use. All right. Number 1, orientation, horizontal or vertical. This is very simple. If your charts present time, so if basically the category in your chart is a time series, monthly, daily, weekly, annual, and so on, then always put those use charts with horizontal axis that runs left to right. Okay, very simple. Now, of course, everybody does that, but now the second part here, if it's not time, okay, then do not use those charts with horizontal axis. Use charts with the vertical axis. So it should go from top to bottom, and this goes for anything else that is not time. So your products, countries, business units, cost types, and whatever that is not a time dimension. All right. And this is now true for any type of chart. Okay, it can be a simple bar chart, should run left to right for time, but like a bar chart, actually this is a column chart, this is then a bar chart, would be for products running from top to bottom. If it's maybe a variance by product, you will use maybe the so-called plus minus chart, but it will run vertically. It will have a vertical axis from top to bottom. Variance by time will look like this, maybe. All right. Maybe some waterfall charts. This one with the horizontal axis will have the floating elements by maybe quarter or month and so on. And here maybe you'll have business units, right? And this means that you then need a vertical waterfall chart or a vertical bridge chart and so on. Okay, so that's very simple. Let's head over to Power BI and just quickly illustrate why this is important. Sounds trivial, but I see the way. All right, cool. So let's try a couple of things. So if you're in Power BI and you just started using the tool for the first time, you have the data here. Maybe you just click. All right, this is my sales. This is my actual sales, and you get something, right? You get a chart. You get a visual, right? And actually, Power BI has decided now for you which chart you should use. All right, and now I want to split this down by a business unit, by my business units. All right, so I'll just click here. All right, so I got a column chart. All right, so Power BI has decided for me, and I got a sales by business unit, right? But we said this chart now has the horizontal axis. These are not month or something like that. So you should actually turn this chart around, make sure that it has a vertical axis. So here in the visualizations pane, we will, instead of the column chart, we will use the clustered bar chart. Click. All right, and as you can see, the labels, now you can see all the labels are displayed horizontally, easier to read, and so on. All right, so always like this. If your labels are tilted diagonally, this is a very good indication that you got your chart orientation wrong. So turn it around for 90 degrees, like that. Very simple. All right, so that's it. I mean, this is for the structure. You will see that actually most of the charts that in Power BI, you have more charts that have the horizontal axis. So you actually have more choices for time. So for example, if I just do this again, but this time just do let's do a monthly chart. Okay, now you have the column chart, you have the line chart, you have the area chart. So this is all fine for month, right? But you would not do something like put business units into this one, right? You need to turn it around, and then when you turn it around, you need charts with vertical axes, and basically just have the stacked bar chart, the clustered bar chart. There's a very limited. Actually, those are the only two ones. Yep. So so the choice is actually very limited for structure comparisons and so on. All right. So this was the orientation. Now let's move on. The second thing now is the task. Okay. So this is now the most important thing. All right. What will the user actually want to do with the chart? How will he read it? What kind of questions will he pose and so on? So of course, this is now the point where you should think about your audience, think about what is important for him. What is his main KPI? What is the first thing that he needs to understand when he opens his report? Like what is, if you had just one number, like a very, very small mobile phone that can only display like one number, what would be that number for this particular person that wants to, that is observing your dashboards, right? Try to think like that. All right, what's the most important thing? And then what's the next most important thing that he wants to see, and so on. And then this will help you how to, choose the charts. But let's go one by one. So we'll start with the most simple charts, most simple tasks that people are doing with charts. So let's start with a simple comparison. So I already created this chart that displays the sales by business unit. All right, so if you create a chart like this, okay, people can do a couple of things. First of all, they will see some, big values. Somebody might call this an outlier, but it's really not an outlier. This is just the business unit with the most sales, just the most important business unit, right? So if you don't do anything here, you will always have this scattered, pattern here. So you might want to sort the chart by the actual value. All right, so it's a very simple operation, sorting. Once you sort by value, it is of course easier to compare the data. Next thing, the user can actually do the ranking. All right, so now I can answer the question, which one is the third business unit by revenue? Well, it's speakers, right? It's here on the third place, right? So the chart, if it's sorted, it also supports ranking tasks. So if this is important, and many times this is important, maybe not, okay, is this now the fifth or fourth element and so on, but to understand that these are the most important items here, the most important business units, right? They should be placed on top. So that's why also you need to make sure that your charts are sorted descending when you're sorting by value. All right, and that's basically it. I mean, that's basically it. Of course, you can, you don't have many other options here. You could use the pie chart, right? So it does provide, like it's a kind of a breakdown. Maybe it's also part to whole, right? It's basically more part to whole. So I now understand that this is like more than 1/4 of the whole circle and so on. But as you see, first of all, this gets messy because you need the color legend here. It's very hard to say which element is actually displayed here, and there are more problems with the pie chart that I'll explain a little bit later. Now, of course, in Power BI, typically people actually prefer the donut charts, which is basically the same as the pie chart, only that it has a hole in the middle. So it's basically a pie with a hole, and but try to avoid it. Try to avoid it. And now the most popular one is the tree map that does display the breakdown. So it is a kind of a visual that helps people understand the breakdown. But if I now asked you, what is the how much is this one bigger than this one, or this one bigger than this one, and so on, and how much are actually the what is the sales of certain elements? It's very hard to say. And if you just stick to the basic bar chart, this is very easy now. Here, visually, the visual system in humans is designed in such a way that we can really easily assess the height or the width of certain elements and compare them like that, because this is our primary visual experience. And so we are most precise when comparing length. We are much less precise when comparing areas. And this is one of the problems of pie charts and the tree map, or the Merrimack chart, as it is also called. All right, so this is it basically. Whenever you see some elements here that are, or inscriptions that are placed like vertically or diagonally and so on, try to fix it. Here you probably don't need this, so Power BI will then, of course, offer you certain settings here, so you can try to make it a little bit more clean. You don't need axis titles in this case because the title is already here, so you can safely turn the title off. Also for the y-axis, turn the axis off, and then it is much better to put the labels actually inside the chart. So we now understand that, you know, the sales here is more than 2 million, but how much is it? Can you really tell? It's like is it 2.4, 2.3, 2.5? We don't really know, right? So just turn the labels on. Turn the labels on. All right, it's 2.5. And now when you have this, you don't need the axis, you know, the grid lines here. So you can then actually turn them off. I'll just turn the whole axis off. All right, and is it? Sorry, not the Y. Okay, like this. So that's better, cleaner, and of course it should be also the right precision and so on. All right, so that's it. That's comparison, very simple. Let's move on to the next one, which is the trend analysis. Okay, so for time series analysis, as mentioned, you can do it in this chart or this chart or this chart, so area chart, line chart, and so on. Yeah, also try to make it clean and so on. And now the question is, what is better? Is it better to use columns, or is it better to use lines, or, you know, is it just the same? Is it important or not? So a general recommendation would be to use columns when in situations where you have a very small data set. So for example, if you have like, maybe if this would be quarters. So months are okay. Okay, so this is, you know, 12 elements, that's okay. But you need certain, you know, then the chart needs to be big, because the purpose of the columns here is that people can actually compare each data point. So basically in a column chart, as opposed to the line chart, people actually can compare each data point to another one. So May to April and so on, okay? Whereas in the line chart, my eye actually follows the line and it assesses the angle of the line. Is it going up or down and so on? So it's more useful for just displaying trends, just global trends. Is it going up or down? How much and so on, right? So, and the line charts usually work better if they are very dense. All right, Power BI has a problem with that. So there's actually a setting somewhere to put the category, to decrease the category size and so on. So, but you know, you can make it very, very, very small. Or it can be bigger, but you can put much more data points into a line chart and it would still make sense. The same goes for area charts. All right, so they are kind of similar. Now, the next thing that you need to be quite cautious in Power BI about is that, for example, if you see here, the growth of the sales by month looks quite dramatic. There's a huge spike here, and you know, we started here almost at the axis. Well, I don't have the axis here, so I don't really know where's the bottom you know, part, but maybe here it looks like, you know, all right, almost from zero sales we went up, right? But then if you observe the column chart, it's not actually here at the bottom, at the axis. Why? Because this chart starts at 0.0. So this is a zero-based chart with a zero y-axis. And this is the chart that is truthful, right? This one actually lies, all right? It exaggerates the trend here. So it looks much, much bigger, but at the same time, there's absolutely no warning to the end user, you know, that this chart has actually a broken axis, all right? So there's an axis break here. And Power BI does this completely automatically and has no visual notation for the axis break, all right? It just looks like that. And now, even more strangely, if you now go, okay, so on top of the lines, right, you can also you also have markers. So there's in the data, so I think here are the shapes, yeah. So here under the shapes, you can show the markers. All right, the strange thing that happens is when I turn on the markers, you see the minimum and maximum of this chart has changed. So it's even more exaggerated here. So you see, you need to be very careful with your minimum and maximum when using line charts in Power BI. So for example, then you need to go here to the y-axis and make sure that here at the start, you just type 0. Right, for some reason, okay. Okay, so this is now a 0-based chart, like, so now it's actually, now it's the same, right? And also here, so this is correct. This is what it should actually be like. All right. Okay, so you need to be careful, especially because the charts in Power BI, they don't show, they don't display the axis. There's no axis here in chart, and there's, as far as I know, there's no option to actually show the axis. So it should be here in the x axis, but at least at the moment it's not there. So it's much cleaner without the axis, but it's much more dangerous. All right. Okay, so these are the native options now for the. Let's go on. If you're using custom visuals like ZeroBI, you will have more options. So on top of like column charts, you will also have maybe the pin charts, you know, or the lollipops as they are called, and of course the ZebraBI visual lets you slide between charts even in the view mode or on the mobile phone, so you can just, you know, switch between them. But there's another option here. So when you have a area chart, if you have just one measure, then you can use the area chart that kind of highlights whether, emphasizes whether, you know, the value is going down from the previous data point or it's going up. So that's why this chart is also called the hills and valleys chart, right? And then if it goes down into a valley, then it's probably becomes flooded with red water or something. So this just emphasizes the trend, whether it's positive or negative. Now, if you're using the ZebraBI visuals, then you will find another setting here. You can actually switch the layout, so you can have a, you know, a basic area chart here. Of course, it you can change the, you can just set any kind of color here. So maybe if I use the same blue or something. Okay, and then for the markers, something like that, right? But the important thing is that you have this layout of a regular area chart, but then actually by default it is the layout, which is called the integrated variance, and this is something that I'll talk about a little bit later. Now, the important thing here is that you can make those charts very, very small, especially with the ZebraBI visuals. And this is important because, you know, sometimes you need a very small element, like for a KPI, or if you're doing the small multiples. So in this case, you just need to make sure that you clean the elements of the chart up. So, for example, in the categories, you will not display all the categories, but maybe just first and the first and the last one. Similarly with the data labels, you know, well, the units, I mean, the data labels are responsive by default, but still, you know, you have also the density here. So maybe just first and last label, or sometimes even just the last label. So it depends, you know, how big is it, right? And yeah, one more thing here with the charts. Charts also according to the IBCS standard should have this little element here on the right side that you see in the ZebraBI custom visual, and this is called the difference highlight. All right, so the native Power BI charts do not have the difference highlight, so there's no way how to edit here, but this can be important, you know, to emphasize maybe like the growth from the previous data point, or like growth in like in the value in dollars, or in the percentages, or even both, right? And you can use this to display a difference between two data points, or the difference highlight, or the like typically, you know, the penultimate to the last, or maybe the first to last. So just to see the cumulative growth here from the first element, and so on, right? And sometimes this can be the most important, you know, number, that one figure that you know the manager first wants to see, right? So what's the growth from previous month, or something like that, right? So in this case, you may even decide to design it to give it even more emphasis. All right, so in this for this case, we do have in the ZebraBI visual this element called the highlight ellipse, right? And you can use an ellipse or a circle, you know, to even emphasize this element more, you know, to draw the attention here to this visual. All right, once you can make your chart small, the last thing about the trend analysis that I would say today is, you know, yeah, it's nice to see the trend by month and so on, and we see that there's some growth here, 18.3%. That's great, that's perfect, but how is this, you know, managers do need to see more information, understand more. So instead of showing just maybe one chart, like I did before, one chart and have one big chart, right? What you want to do is you want to use data visualization methods like small multiples that use multiple charts. And for example, to put, you can use the business units, drop it in the visual. Now, incidentally, this works in both the ZebraBI visuals and the native Power BI visuals. Now, in the ZebraBI, you see you get multiple charts. They are all scaled together, and then the visual also makes sure that if one business unit is much bigger than the others, it's displayed in a proper way. It actually consumes more space, right? So the whole display is optimized. You do have small multiples now also in Power BI. So the native charts, for example, the stacked, let's just go for the clustered, all right, or something. Basically, a lot of those visuals will support the small multiples in Power BI. So if you're using the native charts, you can put your field into the small multiples field, all right? And you'll get small multiples with the native visuals in Power BI. And then you will also find further settings for the small multiples here. So basically the grid layout is probably the most important. So here you can increase the number of columns. All right. But then at certain point, then you will have the problem with the month, the category. So then you must go to the category. There's a setting somewhere to control what is the width of a category and so on. So this is how you can do it with native Power BI visuals, and for the Zebra BI visuals, the Zebra BI charts visual has really fantastic support for the small multiples, including the others functionality where you can actually decrease the number of elements that you are displaying, right? Maybe just top 8 most important elements, and everything else is then combined into this others chart. So the visual just takes care of that directly here. Okay, so this is about the trend analysis. The next one is part to whole. All right, so typically users are actually not using the small multiples. This is like pivot tables in Excel. It's fantastic, but only like 5 to 10% of people are actually using pivot tables in Excel. The same goes for small multiples. Use them if you haven't used them before. But what do people do instead? They actually prefer stacked charts. All right, so all right, now I'm in Zebra BI, so I'll just click here. So in Zebra BI, you can actually switch between the small multiples and the stack charts. All right, so if you didn't know that before, there's an icon here, so you can always just flip between the two. All right, so typically users use the stack charts, and I would advise to actually avoid them as much as possible. Sometimes you need them, but don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. So a typical stack chart. So in Power BI, you have the native chart here. So you can use the stacked column chart or the stacked area. All right. So you have both in Power BI. First one, second one. They're very, very problematic. So for example, here, looks strange, and the problem is, if you have a lot of categories here, you can't even read the label, the legend. You need to click here to actually see all the elements in the legend. Of course, you can move the legend around. You can move the legend to the right, which would be probably a better choice, and so on. But basically, again, you get a very decorative chart that does not get the message across. I mean, we can see the seasonality, the height, and we can understand maybe the part of, the proportion of the first element, the one that is actually on the axis, the first one, and then the rest, right? So that's it. So I would advise to actually use small multiples instead. So if you have this chart, even if we, even in Zebra BI, right? What you can do is, all right, here, at least in Zebra BI, you have a couple of options. First of all, you can sum up, the visual will sum up the series for you. All right, so what you can do is you can just decrease and now just display the top 3 and the others, or just top 2 series and the others, or even just top 1. So just the most important business unit and all the others, right? So you can do this, and you can dynamically just switch, change the number here. Next thing is you can highlight certain categories. All right, so you basically can color code certain elements, like variables, maybe another one, just give it another color, and so on. So it'll be color coded. It will stay, the color will stick to the element name. And then when you switch, you maybe get more details. So maybe it's a good combination, even if you have it here users can see, okay, what's actually going on within the variables. Is it going up or down? You see here, it's impossible to see. But if you're using small multiples, we actually see that this business unit is increasing. All right, so you see more, but you don't get the total. So maybe this switch here helps switch between the two worlds. But that's basically the part to whole, which helps people understand what is the proportion of one element, of one part, to the whole, to the total of this data point. Or it can help understand the accumulation, what is the portion of the top 3 data series compared to the whole. All right, but it's always this part to whole comparison. All right, moving on to the next one, which is the contribution. Okay, so we had this chart before, but then, and we said this is now for comparison, simple comparison between the bars. All right, what if I now want to understand what is actually my total sales, okay, and how do those elements contribute to that total sales? All right, and this is something that is missing from practically all the BI tools. You cannot add the total here because the chart, this chart, the stacked, the clustered bar chart or the column chart, were just designed for the users to compare, one bar with the other. So you cannot add just flip on the total. So in the ZebraBI visuals, of course, we have the total. Okay, you can just, add the grand total, you can rename it and so on. But now, okay, now you have another option how to show or display the contribution of those elements to the total. Okay, and you do this with the vertical waterfall chart. All right, so I'll just flip here to the vertical waterfall chart. So see now I still have the bars here, but they are just accumulated here, and you now understand how we got to the total. All right, and we can roughly also see that the first and the second one are all already, more than half of the total. Okay, so this is the contribution analysis. We can understand this. You cannot do this. You cannot do this in Power BI. What you can do is you can use the waterfall chart, which is here, but it only exists with a horizontal axis, right? So that's the problem. So you see, this is the same thing, only it's flipped around. So you can do this like here. And then the next thing is that the vertical waterfall chart is good for is to show the hierarchy. Okay, and this is now quite important. So for example, now I have some business units here, but you have a hierarchy in almost every dimension in your Power BI model. So how do you show the hierarchy? I'll just drop the division here, another field, and what happened is, you see now I have actually two divisions, two main business lines, electronics and personal care, and within electronics I have those business units. So see, this is now a really nice way how to just present the hierarchies, and like the vertical waterfall chart is quite good for that. Even if you have more levels in a hierarchy. For example, this is my mobile unit, and if I open this, within the mobile business unit, we have tablets and smartphones. So I now understand. So see, this is now a subtotal, and this is how a subtotal should look like in a vertical waterfall chart. This is quite nice hierarchies, or for another like very similar purpose, which is a calculation. All right, so this is now here a very similar chart, only with a couple of more features, namely in a calculation, certain elements, the elements are not just simply added like we had before with the normal waterfall chart, this one plus this one equals the total, but can also be subtracted, right? Because now I have certain costs, and this is now my subtotal, which is the cost of goods sold, product cost plus service cost, right? And if I subtract now the costs of goods sold from my revenue, I get to my gross profit. All right. So there's no way to do this in Power BI and in almost in normal BI tools. So you need custom visuals for that. So in Zebra BI, you simply just mark certain elements like this, costs of goods sold. You basically just invert them, or even the whole branch of elements. So they are now being subtracted here. And then you arrive at the gross profit, which again should not be a floating element, but it should be a result. So it's like an intermediate subtotal, intermediate result. You just mark it here as a result, and then you get a proper calculation. All right. So the waterfall chart is basically the best visual way how to display the calculation. It's a visual calculation. All right. So this is the waterfall chart, the vertical waterfall chart. If you need for pricing calculations or income statements, balance sheets, and things like that, cash flow statements. All right. Okay. Now the next thing is the comparison. The comparison is how do you compare multiple series? Basically, you have two options in charts. Either use a stacked, the clustered chart, and you just add one, add another series, and then you get this. Now there's another way. So this is a slightly different way where basically you have the same two series, but they are overlapped. So there's just the overlap. So this is called the overlapped. It's a version of a clustered chart, I would say. But I will not stay on this one too long, because now I would advise against using this. All right. So this is not too good, because people will always see a lot of those blue bars. Okay. So now the question is, what exactly are those two series, right? So if this was, apples, the sales of apples and the sales of pears or bananas, right? So something completely different. Then just use a normal line chart like this, right? And then you have two lines, and then you see, what's the trend of each line, and so on, right? That's it. But fix the axis so that it starts with the 0. Okay. If you're using the Power BI, of course, Zebra BI. In Zebra BI, you can break the axis as well, but then the line goes away. So you can do this actually for all the charts. All right, this one is one. It's a little bit ahead, but also in here. Now you break the axis, but you have the visual indication here. All right. So that would be one way. You just do it like this. But if this is like in my case, two things that you actually want to observe the variance, and you're very interested in the actual gap between the two, like actual versus plan and so on, then you should visualize the gap. So you should visualize this change here, or visualize the variance. Okay, and this now gets us to the variance. Okay, the variance means that instead of doing it like this, you will do it like this. All right, let's put in the sorting as well, so it looks like similar. says C. Now this is something that you cannot do in most BI tools, including Power BI. It does not have this. So instead of showing two bars, you actually show just one of the bars, which is the actual, and then show the gap. All right. So it's red and green, and this is called the integrated variance because this is actually the variance, the gap between the two, visualized directly on the chart. Okay, and now this is now the variance analysis, another task. So wherever you have actual versus plan, actual versus forecast, previous year, and so on, this is a nice choice. And you can do it either with this integrated chart or with one of the what I've mentioned with the extended charts. So for example, if I make this chart a little bit bigger, you see what happens is ZeroBI will automatically display those charts, the variances in a separate chart. So if the space is very limited, they are integrated in this chart. If there's enough space, it'll just pop out of the chart and will be presented with this so-called extended chart. But the important thing is that this chart here is scaled. It is rendered in the same scale, so it represents exactly the same change here. So if I show the overlapped bar here, so you see here, this is the previous year. Now it's less, but it's exactly for this length. The gap is exactly the same. All right, this is the variance. And then the last one, just to finish with the charts, is now the another version of the waterfall chart, which again does not exist in the native Power BI. Well, you sort of can do it, but it's quite hard. And it is the bridge chart. And this one differs from the basic one, right? In the sense that it shows the actual variances. So you use it to display the contribution of variances of each element to the total variance. Okay, so Q1 was above previous year, Q2 was below, Q4 was again above it, and this is how we basically explained the total change, which is 8.2% here, right? So you can use it like that, and this is a very good chart for the business users. They will love it. It's very focused on the goal, on the performance. So you should use it, and this is also why it's very easy to construct in ZebraBI. But basically, in ZebraBI you have the normal chart. Just add another measure, for example, the previous year, and boom, voila, you get the bridge chart. Okay, this is the first one. Then you can do this by time, or you can do this also for other elements. To explain the change from the plan or something. Let me just make a copy by something else, not time. So let's try once more with our business units here. Okay, of course, now you see, because I have business units, I should actually turn this chart around first. So you will find a setting to show vertical charts, vertical axis in the ZebraBI. Now you have something like that. And now, of course, certain elements, certain business units are more or less, the same. Some are quite important. Growth here, negative growth here, right? But there's a lot of them, right? So what I want to do is I want to focus on the most important ones. That's why, in this case, you can turn on the setting called the top bottom N, which means that only the elements that have the biggest contribution to this growth either in positive way or in a negative way, will be shown here. Right, so this is the maybe the most focused type of chart, because it exposes what's the result and what are the key contributors to this result. All right, so it's very business focused, and then you do the top 5 or top 10 or something, as little as possible basically, and then users can actually like increase, just open up, all right, what's actually here in the others category. If they can click and then expand the selection, and so on. So these are the bridge charts, the waterfall charts, and that kind of concludes this run through of the basic chart types. Now, to wrap it up, a couple of examples of time series trends. Sometimes you can go very information dense with the small multiples, like that. And yeah, to conclude it with the shape, so we have seen the time series lines for trends, where you have more data elements. If you have just a few columns, then you can use bars, otherwise go for lines or areas. Or as you may have noticed here, the you can also choose certain shapes of your charts for certain purpose, for certain KPIs. For example, you can use bars always for revenue, and then the lollipop charts, the dots, for some percentages. So people immediately, when they will see one type of one shape, they will understand, all right, I'm looking at percentages, or I'm looking at revenue in millions or something like that. For price, you can have more narrow columns and so on. As you may have noticed, I was using bars for the absolute variance, and then this lollipop chart here for the relative variance, which is one of the propositions and recommendations of the IBCS standard, International Business Communication Standards, that was actually founded by and invented by Dr. Rolf Hichert. So this is a standard that actually is a base for Zebra BI product, and for certain properties of the charts that I was showing today. All right, hopefully this will help you move away from the chart junk. We had things like that in the 80s. Now it's much better. Charts are cleaner already in tools like Power BI. Still, some people want 3D pie charts and stuff like that in Power BI, but hopefully my demonstration today gave you a little bit better ideas. Do not use the tree map. The tree map is the new pie chart. Use bar charts, and hopefully bar charts with integrated variances. Always try to show the context of data. So not just the structure of your sales, but compare your sales to the previous year, to the budget, to the plan, show forecasts, stuff like that. This is what will give the insight that is actually recommended by a business user, by a manager that is actually looking at your reports. If you will fail to deliver that, they will want tables from you. They will say, well, it's a nice dashboard, but can you do it in a table, right? If you get this request, it means that your charts were not dense enough, not insightful enough. So hopefully, these recommendations here will help with that. All right, let's take a few questions. The resources, Mark, please let me know if there are any questions, so we can have still have a discussion now. While we are doing that, you see some of the links on the screen, all the webinars are recorded and collected on zebrabi.com/webinars. So we have 33 hours of material already there, so you can watch other topics of how to use the charts in dashboards and things like that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And yeah, Mark, let me know if there are any questions that I can answer.
Okay, let's start with a simple one. Will the Power BI file, which is being presented with the Zebra BI visuals, be shared after the webinar?
Yeah, we can share it. We typically share the files. So yeah, we will upload it to the recording page. So yeah, it will be available for download.
Okay, so if I just check. There was an interesting question, actually, from Sofia Rukadze. Which visualization type can you suggest for customer profile? So
Customer profile?
yes.
I'm afraid I would need to understand more. What does she mean by customer profile?
This might be probably referring to the qualitative data displayed for
maybe Sophie can just elaborate on that, like maybe what kind of measure is it, or are there several measures about one customer, like a kind of a scorecard for one customer, or is it some kind of a comparison or a benchmark?
Information. She says information about clients. Maybe show some templates.
All right. Yeah.
There's not measures.
It's not measures.
No.
Yeah. Then
so name, surname, date of birth.
Maybe we take this one offline, and then you can reach us at our email addresses. So I will share our so this is my email address and my LinkedIn profile. So maybe it's best that you just contact me on LinkedIn. Just add me on LinkedIn, and feel free to ask me that, and then maybe yeah, we can. We'll need to ask like 2 or 3 questions to understand exactly the situation.
Okay, so there was another one about MECO charts. So Paweł Sabansky agrees no more tree maps, but what about the MECO chart? For us, it is perfect to visualize market size and market share.
The MECO charts. Well, I believe the MECO chart is basically this. The MECO or the Marimekko chart should be basically the same thing as the tree map. So it's basically the same thing. So for example, let me throw this out. Let's go back to the but market size and share, that's yeah, that's something slightly different. Yeah, so basically the tree map and the Marimekko chart, it's more or less the same thing. You can add multiple measures here, but in Power BI it's basically always just a breakdown. So it's always like breakdown by the group, and then by the subsequent either measures or by a hierarchy, because you can put a hierarchy here. So for example, and actually Microsoft kind of, if you read their documentation, they actually say that, you know, this is perfect to display hierarchies, right? So now I have a hierarchy, but so I have a personal care, and then, you know, within I have the baby care, You can do it like this, or you can do it like this. You know, so you can control the colors and so on, but it's basically always a breakdown. It's very hard to compare elements here because they are of the different, you know, they're always encoded in the area. That's the problem. So, you know, it's hard to say which element is bigger and what are we looking at. The problem is also with the labeling. You know, you cannot get labels inside, and there's no place to show whether it's going up or down and so on. So yeah, the market shares, I would the market shares, there are a few, I think, better ways. For the market shares, you could use the small multiples with just the percentages of market shares by market, and you display all the markets. And then there are other things like marketing examples. Maybe Mark, if you go with the next one, I'll try just to pull out one example that I have, one like ancient examples from my consulting company actually. So Mark, please go ahead. So
Yep.
I'll just try to find something.
So there was another question. Is it possible to input two or more budget comparison measures? For any budget number or revision or update?
Yeah. Yes. So let's explain this. In the visual here, you have 4 placeholders, so you can add the actual versus previous year versus plan and forecast. And at the moment, here you can add one measure for previous year, one measure for plan, one measure for forecast. But you can add like your secondary plan, like forecast 2, also here behind, and then you will get it in the table as well. And then of course you can also visualize it. You can even scale it with the so-called with the, you know, put it in the same scaling with the first group, and you can move it around like with all the other you know, measures or columns within the Zebra BI table. So if it was the question about the you know, this type of visualization, you can add up to 20 additional columns like this, and they can be either, you know, forecast 2, 3, or another outlook or another benchmark, and, you know, a version of a plan or another scenario or something like that. So this is at the moment, it's already, so it's 4 basic scenarios plus 20 additional measures in columns. But with the version 5.2, we will deliver an option. We will allow you to put multiple measures into the plan bucket and also into the forecast bucket, right? So you will be able to show multiple forecasts with automatically calculated variances, and also multiple ways how to visualize them, right? So right now, according to the IBCS, the forecast is like this, but then if you have multiple forecasts, you will also have multiple patterns for that, and you will have multiple patterns for multiple plans as well. So this is coming in version 5.2. So yeah, Q4, so this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So and then back to the question. So maybe this is one example how to show the market share and on the market. So it contradicts my argument about pie charts, right? Now pie charts I think are okay if you use like just 1 or maximum 2 elements. So this is maybe one way how to show what is your market share on the whole market, right? And these are now different different markets. So Germany, you know, for this product, that's the market share, and this is even the market growth, right? So market share could be just something like that. What's your market share? And you see, but it's a concept of the small multiple. It's multiple charts for each market. You have a visualization, right? So probably today I would do it with you know, with another type of chart, not with a pie chart, but maybe with the variance chart like this. So basically, or a stack chart or multiple stack charts, that would also be an option. But yeah, probably something like that. So hopefully that gives some ideas.
Okay, and thank you for this. There was also a question from Dirk. Any chance we see more Zebra BI visuals in the future? I'm thinking about dot plots, scattergrams, or others found in the IBCS specialties segment.
All right, dot plots. If you mean scatter plots are similar to bar, like I had here. So the short answer is you can expect a new visual from Zebra BI in hopefully already this year. So I mean, yeah, being available publicly this year, if we make it. So that's kind of the plan. So we have something up our sleeves, and you will hear about it. You will hear about it in a couple of months. Yeah, but it's not about the scatter plot. So that's what I can tell you right now. So the scatter plot, yes, the scatter plot is, I have it here in the taxonomy of charts. So you can use scatter plot. So this is this one for, you know, to analyze a correlation, or use a bubble chart. So basically use 3 measures. So this would be 2 measures here, 3 measures with a portfolio, or even the 4th one. So this is very interesting for us. It is something that we have in plan, I must say, but it's a little bit longer term plan. So this is not supported by the Zebra BI visuals, mainly because there's good support for the scatter plots in the native Power BI, but still a little bit limited, right? But you know, scatter plot in Power BI is actually, in my view, actually one of better visuals among the, you know, native ones. So it has quite a lot of settings and so on, but still it's limited, and it's not IBCS compliant. So something needs to be done in the long run, maybe also that one. Yes, but not this year. Something else this year. All right, Mark.
Okay.
5 minutes more. So
yes, there are some really interesting questions, but I'm not sure that they are really appropriate here. So, but maybe, okay, yes, maybe let's give it a go. So how would you address floor plans or maps? Something like synoptic panel.
Yes, that's a great question, actually. So I was talking about charts today, not really maps, but as I explained, there are other types of visualizations. The maps, I would say the biggest problem of the maps. So in Power BI, you have the native, you have a couple of options. You have this field map, like, so like you say, all right, what's my sales by something, sales by country. Let's put this into a, sorry, I can't really,
Maybe select the one to the left, so with the heat map. So yes, this one.
Yeah. All right, sorry. Okay, yeah. This is the one, yeah. So this is the map visual. So the problem of this map visual is that the visualization it has a lie factor. And I actually played with that quite extensively. And whatever you do, it has like a cutoff point where all the bubbles are the same. So like the minimum circle size is limited. And even if this is very, very small, almost non-existent, you will get the same size of, like, for example, here you have 1,900, here you have 10,000. So this is a problem. Otherwise, showing bubbles on a map, that's fine, that's good. This is much better than coloring certain like countries. Just using, shades of color, that is bad practice. So if you're doing any kind of visualization on a map, make sure that you use charts on a map, like circles or pie charts, or better, even like columns on a map, okay, which unfortunately is not supported here. So this visual is very limited, I would say, in Power BI, to the extent that I would not use it in production for any serious reports, although maps are needed. So what I do recommend is, if you need maps, use the Esri map. Why don't I have it here? Where's the Esri map? So it should be here. If you don't have it, maybe it's disabled here, so maybe it needs to be enabled or something. I thought it was native here. I have it in the other one. All right, so there's the map visual from Esri, right? And it's it's shipped together with Power BI. It has more options. It has proper data visualization without the lie factor. And more control over the display on the map. And then you can use, the map, or you can use also floor plans or other things similar to maps. So basically, you geocode a floor plan instead of a map, of world map or a country map. So it's basically the same thing. You just put things in 2 dimensions, like latitude, longitude, and this works nicely. I mean, for floor plans, for some operational reports and so on. The problem of those types of visualizations is always the lie factor, right? So if you don't use proper charts, but instead you color like countries or regions, you will fail. All right.
Okay.
One last question mark, or is that it?
Yes. Let's just find an appropriate one. So actually, we've got a lot of questions right at the end, and there's
that's always the
always the case.
We will reach out to you guys. So if you had
any
a question,
any
we will
questions
try to answer
that are not answered right now.
All of them.
Yeah, we'll try to answer them after
Also,
the webinar.
What I would recommend, once the recording is out on the YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then put your question below the webinar, right? So once it's published, just type your question in the comments, and then we will answer it right there on the YouTube, or reach out to us over LinkedIn or on the email.
Okay, maybe one last question from Christina. So when do you usually use network charts? So is there a use case for network charts?
Yeah, these are typically some I don't use it much. Sometimes we hear from certain clients that they use. I mean, they're typically used for some kind of relations. There's actually not a good network visual to display networks in Power BI, but there are custom visuals for that. And it's usually to display relations between like, you know, in like a social network, you know, and you want to display your social network. How many friends do you have? What are the relations? How close are you to certain friends, and so on. So that's just one example. So it's basically just network visualization, and sometimes this is useful in business for certain reasons. When you have certain resources and then you want to analyze how are they connected, where are the connections, and how strong are the connections, and so on. So it is typically in business reporting, you know, it's more about charts. Charts simply over time, charts over from top to bottom, sometimes with the polar axis, but as I have explained, just try to avoid the circular charts altogether. Just use the vertical axis and so on. So the more consistent you do it, you know, the less you invent, the better, because the consistency is the key.
Well, excellent, Andrej.
Right.
I believe we address some of really interesting and out of the box, I'd say, questions. But yes, time is our enemy today. So
Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys. Hope to see you at our next webinar. We will post the example on our website, and the recording will be delivered to your inboxes and to the YouTube channel. So stay with us at our next webinar. Cheers. Thank you.